Hey everyone, this is Alex with the ninth episode of the Dresden Files podcast, Shipping Time. Today we have a couple of guest hosts, a couple of hosts. We have Stark, who's been on the show before. Say hi, Stark.
Hey everyone. Thanks for having me back.
Yep, we got Director Alex.
Hi guys.
Chris is back.
Hello.
And Justin.
Hello everybody.
So we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We might go over again a little bit. We're going to talk about the AMA that Mr. Jim Butcher did in the /r/books subreddit, and we're going to talk about shipping. We're also going to get some audience feedback from Twitter and Reddit, and also Justin has a little something to say to start off the show. Before that, though, I want to remind everyone that this is a 100% spoiler. We will spoil everything on this podcast. All the Dresden Files books, all the previous books, all the future books, everything will be spoiled. Also, this is a explicit language podcast. We say the F word a lot. And also, I'm going to try harder in the future to warn about possible triggers. Last week, we kind of we brought up the subject of rape, kind of surprisingly, and I should have done a better job at warning about that at the top of the show. Unfortunately, we record this as a live show, and I don't do any editing, both because I don't have time and because we just don't have the technological capacity to do so. So in the future, I'll try and where we post it, put notes that there might be possible triggers. But just realize that if you're going to follow us and listen to the show, that we're going to talk about some adult subjects because the Dresden Files books center around adult subjects. And every episode, it's possible that we could talk about a variety of different triggering subjects. So on that note, Justin, why don't you go ahead and clear your name, because there was definitely a misunderstanding from last week's episode.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of briefly, there were a couple of comments in the subreddit about last episode about a phrase that I had said after we kind of extended the show a little bit to cover some more topics, and the literal phrase, the literal words were something along the lines of, it's not like men can be raped. And so, these two commenters, regardless of gender, doesn't really matter. I don't know them in any way, but they took issue with it, and one went through and commented that they were going to unsubscribe, and that's unfortunate. Because we are a talk show, and one thing that we should strive to do is try and talk and understand and that sort of thing. And it's unfortunate the way that I phrased it, but I think in the context at the time it sort of made sense. But we went back and listened to it and kind of reviewed what was said and whatnot. And I mean, about a minute before that, we were talking about how, Papa Wraith and Laura Wraith have gone both sides of that coin. He came to her first, and then later on, after I think it's White Knight, or no, it would have been Blood Rights, right? She does that to him because that's how their power struggles work in the White Court vampires. So just to say it plainly now, I do believe that rape can be perpetrated on anybody regardless of gender. It's not a gender crime; it's a power crime, in my opinion. So trying to keep it short so I don't cause more trouble, but I regret that that's the opinion that came about, and that upset some people, and so we just wanted to take some time to clarify. We weren't trying to dance around the subject. We weren't trying to make light of it in any way. I think it should be pretty obvious from the show that we were trying to treat it with respect and kind of still push through it, because they are themes that are discussed in the books. There are definitely adult themes there that have to do with the genders and things like that. So.
All right, and to move on to the topic, we also had the Jim Butcher AMA this past week. Some interesting things from that was, so Nicodemus is older than Mab. It's very interesting. And
Well,
then
before
Ebenezer's...
before we talk about that stuff, I was trying to find my. I recently installed a third monitor and I couldn't get all the way over to where the Hangouts window is. Before we start that, remember to follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/slash DresdenCast. Rate and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can search the Dresden Files podcast. I think if you search on Google, that's in the first page of results. Check us out on YouTube. Again, search Dresden Files podcast. You can email us at dresdenfilespodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on /r/DresdenFiles for Reddit. And you can find all that stuff on dresdenfilespodcast.com. Okay, go ahead, Alex. You were saying Nick is older than Matt.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of thought Mab might have been older than him, but the other parts of Ebenezer's wife got killed by Ebenezer's enemies, which is why it's so hard on Margaret, and that Ebenezer's wife is definitely Harry's grandmother. Those are the just few bits that we pulled out that we thought we should highlight. I'm sure there's tons of other things that are interesting to more people.
I think one of the things about Ebenezer's grandmother that was interesting too is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought he said that she was just a vanilla mortal, which is kind of interesting because they had implied earlier that the magical talent gets passed down from the mother's side. So I don't know. That was just a little tidbit that I picked up.
Yeah, that's why the question of whether Ebenezer's wife was Harry's grandmother was relevant, but I don't think it's necessary for it to go down by the mother. It's just a little bit more common. But I don't know. The other parts of it is Justin went to Comic-Con, and he was Harry Dresden, the Burger King. We have some fun pictures that we posted onto Twitter, and he even got to speak to Jim Butcher, which very exciting all around. And then Twitter in general has been kind of fun. I've been talking to some people named Sean and Cesar Noel, and I'm actually going to use this to launch into our topic of relationships, and that there was a tweet I saw talking about there are a lot more Harry/Marcone fan fiction out there than Harry/Thomas, which they thought was more interesting. So what do you guys think of that? Harry Marcone or Harry Thomas?
Neither. Sorry, that's all I got to add on to it.
Oh man, Justin.
Well, we were talking mechanically that, like, despite the ew and the weirdness for typical people, that the Thomas Dresden thing would make some sort of sense because, the White Court doesn't care. I didn't even know the Dresden Marcone thing was a thing. I usually don't read those kinds of fan fictions, to be honest with you, so I have, zero interest in that.
I mean, pretty much any fiction, you're always in any fiction where there's two guys that are either working with each other or in any way associated with each other, you're always going to see that. You look at the Avengers and you have Science Bros. Harry Potter, Snape and Harry, and Snape and Ron, and Dumbledore and Snape, and every fiction always has that. So, yeah. I mean, any other thoughts?
Well, in terms of fiction angle, I like the Harry Marcone a lot better because you get the hate fuck angle versus just creepy incest. So that's my preference.
I mean, it doesn't even make any sense, at all. At least Science Bros makes sense. Science Bros is Bruce Banner and Tony Stark. Why, they hate each other, right?
Well, it's actually a pretty common thing. Not that I'm the /fiction expert or anything, but TV Tropes calls it foyer, and it's it happens enough that they have just pages and pages. Essentially, the idea is that people who are in adversarial type roles will develop, mutual respect, and then readers and people take that obviously to the next level.
Stockholm Syndrome's a thing, so why not? And even in the Dresden Files, you've got Demeter and Marcone already, so the whole enemies thing bringing you together. It's just usually the hate for each other suddenly finding the bonding and love doesn't break the whole I'm actually a straight dude barrier. So it's one thing for that to be a thing between men and women, and even guys, you'll find your former enemy might be your best friend, or that you guys can get over that or something, but it doesn't suddenly make you like fall in bed lovers. So
And I
Oh
mean,
yeah, agreed.
and Harry several times in the books, he says like there's a different kind of hate, like it's the kind of hate that Harry has for Marcone. It's beyond like frenemies. Like he wants to kill Marcone. He wants to kill him. So just like he wants to kill Lara. Um, what do you guys think? I mean, there's like a frenemies level where you just disagree with each other and you can still kind of get along and work together, versus the level of hate that Harry has for Marcone.
It seems like Harry just dislikes having to work with Marcone, but he does respect him. And so it's I hate you, but I still respect you because you're a decent person, and I like how it can get confusing emotions. It's workable if you're writing fan fiction to make it very interesting that way. So it's a fun dynamic that people can play with.
yeah. I agree. I was going to say that, I mean, if we're talking just the like level of hate that he has for Marcone, I mean, certainly I think that shapes over time. I think in the first several books it's very much a strict hate sort of thing, whereas later on he learns to rely on him a little bit and then antagonize him, because Marcone is a bad guy, but he's sort of a necessary, but even more importantly, like especially the last few Dresden books, Marcone really stepped up after changes to protect Chicago in his stead. So as much as he doesn't like who Marcone is and how he operates and that sort of thing, he's seen Marcone, certainly through soul gazes with Demeter and other people like that, how he's operating in Chicago and that he's trying to protect the innocent, regardless of him still being a criminal scumbag. So it gives him some redeeming values where he can kind of like, deal with that, I think.
All right, that's a good point. John. One more thing about Harry and Thomas. So Butcher often says that he wants to make Harry's life. Oh, also, I apologize for my voice. I've had a cold for the past couple of days. So anyway, Butcher's often said that he wants to make Harry's life as terrible, basically, as he possibly can. Right. So do you think that he would ever do that? Like, for some reason, like Thomas and Harry are stuck together, just like Harry and Susan were. Do you think that's like even a possibility?
I think that's kind of off base just a little bit, because I think at one point he mentioned that maybe it was in the AMA, I'm not sure, but basically that he doesn't like torture. Well, he does enjoy torturing Harry, but he likes torturing us, the audience, even more so.
Well, same. Pretty much, it's like what's the thing about six in one hand, half dozen in the other. It would pretty much torture us too to see that. Maybe not Director Alex, but the rest of us would be pretty tortured to see that.
I think it's a different torture that we're talking about, though. Like he wants to put Harry through physical and emotional pain, but as an author, like, I mean, hell, just compared to what we dealt with in the last couple of days, it was a tiny splash in the sort of backlash that if Butcher wrote something like that into the book, I imagine, just even people that are supporters of that, just like, how dare you do that to my favorite character, type of stuff. So I don't know. I think it would be a possibility. I think in some universe, that would work out, but I don't know. I'd ever expect to see it in the books. I think he went a much more interesting, direction with the, what the Nagloshi did in Turncoat than, we could possibly imagine, because most of that happened off screen, and we still don't know the full ramifications of that. It's sort of been breaking over the last few books, so.
One can only hope, right, that it would never get to the point where what I'm saying would happen. All right, so in the lead up to this episode, we were discussing potential ships, and I kind of tried to break it between the obvious ones and then the crazy ones. So we just gave two crazy ones. Let's bring it back to some of the more obvious ones. Let's talk about Harry's relationships with women. Does anyone want to start?
Harry belongs with Murphy.
Agreed.
Oh no! Don't. This is it. This is the episode where we do this.
Yep.
This is it.
Yeah, but she did want the disclaimer to be able to call you a dumbass up front,
Right.
remember?
This is it.
So
That might have been specifically for you, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Start, Chris. Do you want to say anything about that before I just jump on
Sure. I know read a lot. It's like, oh, but she's immortal, and she'll die, and he'll have to live with that and stuff. But like, that concept just bugs the crap out of me because they're still like best case scenario they'll have a few decades together. So should you just forgo happiness in the short term because in the long term it's not going to last? That's like saying, oh, I'm not going to buy a dog because it's going to die. So why bother?
woof, that's a little harsh.
Stark.
Yeah, basically with Murphy, I more or less agree with that as well, that Harry and Murphy probably, to me, are the best pairing. But at the same time, I understand that there are a few reasonable reasons given why they really wouldn't work out. And I have a really good one that bugged the hell out of me, but I don't want to take time away from it if, it's up to you guys if you want me to elaborate on it or not.
Elaborate,
Do it.
because that's what this is for. We're going to argue.
Okay, basically the issue I took with it that seemed a little out of place was in Cold Days when... No, sorry, not Cold Days, Skin Game. When Nicodemus beat the living shit out of Murphy and Harry didn't flip out. I don't... Like, that to me, I'm like, no, Harry, this is where you're supposed to get pissed off and practically go Super Saiyan over this here. You're supposed to jump in and kick Nicodemus's ass. And he didn't. And even Michael called him out on it. It was like, Harry, why aren't you angry? He's like, oh, I'll be angry later. I'm like, what? So
I don't know if you read the same book as I did, because he was having an emotional breakdown at the entire thing. He was terrified and really angry. He was just also controlling it.
that's true. I'll give credence to that, but I still expected Harry to like really, really start to lose it at that point. Maybe, considering he was going through such emotional turmoil, that he would snap at that point and actually take action. Which, not to say that he absolutely could take action as much as anybody else in the situation could. I mean, you can't really get out of a Bigfoot's full Nelson practically. So that it was just something that really kind of set suspicion on that. Like if maybe like, yeah, there's something more to it, or it's just an offhand thing, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, a couple of things for that. I think you would be absolutely spot on with with a younger Dresden, like older books. Anything, 1 through 6, maybe even, he would totally have flipped out. He would have had an emotional breakdown, whatever, but he's been through a lot of trauma recently, and more he's trying to get control of that sort of thing. But even more importantly, you see how Karen and Murphy, or I'm sorry, Karen and Murphy, but Karen and Harry like react in Cold Days, and he brings her into battle like full on head of the charge for the first time ever. Well, okay, sorry, second time, because Chichen Itza is a thing, but they've also gone through these trials together, and so I thought he said something about his retort to Michael was something like she's not just like a dainty little flower anymore. She made her choices. She decided to play with the big boys, and not kind of blowing it off, but unfortunately she took it on her that she's going to get hurt, and they both had to kind of own that. And there will be time to even the scoreboard later, is kind of how I remember it, but it's been a little bit since I've read the book. So
I totally agree that he finally realizes that it's Murphy's decision, to put her. Plus, he realizes also that she uses the sword in a way that makes both the sword and her vulnerable. So she chose to do that. Yeah, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say my opinion on this whole thing. I mean, Murphy, it's just it's just so obvious, and I hate the whole obvious, because they've been together for so long, and it's like, oh, they don't like each other in the beginning. It's that classic, like, the classic, I guess, fantasy kind of trope where they don't like each other in the beginning, and then in the end they're together. But not only that, I don't think they're right for each other, and we've seen that it took how many years? It took a decade pretty much for them to even want to have relations with each other, not necessarily even have a relationship with each other. Um, but if you look at some of the other possible ships, like Elaine and Harry, which is a perfect fucking match because, uh, or Molly and Harry, which I also think would be a very good match,
There's
considering
something wrong with you.
why I mean, Elaine and Harry obviously love each other to the point where they're there's just it's just like a I don't know how to it's like constantly under the surface, even after he thought she was dead. And there's no way you can ignore that Harry deep down had something for Molly, right? Because that's also obvious if you look at Cold Days and all the stuff we've seen so far after he's become the Winter Knight. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Elaine and Harry, there's definitely something still there. Just is in the sense that you never get over your first love, no matter how much of a crazy psycho bitch she is. And so there's very clearly Harry still loves her, but that's a mitigating circumstance to the point where like he'll never be able to fully trust her, I think, and that's kind of the building block of a long-term relationship. The whole thing with Molly, she's his best friend's daughter. Okay, he's never going to be able to get over that any more than he could get over the fact that Elaine tried to like trap him in a burning house and let Demorne, basically mind wash him as or whatever he was going to do. So like you've got these huge mitigating things, whereas the huge mitigating thing for Karen is she won't live forever, which may or may not be a problem because Harry's not convinced he's going to live to the ripe old age of 300, and this is also a fantasy world, so we've seen Molly take on new flavors. There's nothing to say Karen can't also come into something, but it's also not to say that that's even important. What's truly important to their happiness as characters, may or may not be. Well, we don't have 200 or 300 years together, but I think if a couple of us had a chance to spend some time in Hawaii with Karen, I think we'd take her up on that.
Chris, do you have anything?
To add about
Elaine and Molly and Harry.
oh no, I mean you guys pretty much hit the points I was gonna make. Like he has said, Harry has said that he doesn't look at Elaine the same way because of what happened that night, and I don't know, Molly. Well, it's already been said, it's his best friend's daughter, and she even brings it up to the point where I can't remember what book it was in, but she's like, "You don't see me like that because you're afraid of disappointing my father."
Stark.
Uh, I pretty much agree with the previous sentiments, but I think there is part of it with Molly is also how influential Harry was in her becoming who she is now. I think that mentor-apprentice relationship, for as long as it was, granted it was probably shorter than most apprentices, but I I think there might be too much there for it to really work out. Um, I think it potentially might work out if it ever goes in that direction, but uh, I don't think it's as strong of a case as you can make with Harry and Murphy versus, Harry and Molly or Elaine and Harry. I pretty much agree with everything about Elaine. I don't think Harry will ever be able to trust her to that kind of extent again, and I think that's even though it wasn't her fault. I think that's understandable why he would feel that way.
Director Alex.
Right. For Harry and Elaine, I think, yeah, he can't trust her, and that would just doom the relationship. But it also seems like for her to get over everything, that she needs to move past his involvement in that section of her life so she can get better. But for Harry and Molly, I do not like that ship. I think there's something wrong with the people who support it
What?
because fuck
That's
you,
not
you're a
fair.
dumbass.
That's
I have the right to say that.
that's not fair. That's not fair.
Well,
No. How
every
come?
single book that they have been in there together, he has said he doesn't view her that way. That she's a kid, that he won't support it. And it would be too big of a character
That's
shift
because he's a
if he just
dumbass who
was,
can't just take what's
you're
right
a
in front of.
dumbass.
He can't take what's right in front of him. It's so obvious. And if how come we can say that Murphy is able to make the choice to put herself in mortal danger against one of the most dangerous creatures on Earth, and we can't allow Murphy to date Harry, even though she's a full-grown adult. She's what, like 28 now, because her father and Harry are friends. That's not fair.
No, I mean, Harry's reasons for not wanting to date Molly is his own reasons, and those are valid. And
No, they're not valid. They're stupid.
you don't get to force anyone to be in a relationship.
I understand. I just think that the reasons are stupid.
I think it would be too big of a character break for Harry for me to support it. I don't think they would work well together because Molly is still immature in that way. She needs to get over it for her to fully grow up, in my opinion. I believe Molly should be with Carlos, but that's it. And Harry should be with Mom.
Well, Justin, we'll get to you in 1 second. I slightly do agree with that. I think if Molly's not going to be with Harry, then she should be with Carlos. But what was I going to say? Oh, one more thing. I think it's unfair to say. It's definitely unfair to say that anyone who thinks Molly and Harry should be together are wrong. That's wrong.
I just think that they're looking at it in a wrong way, to the point that they're ignoring what the characters are actually doing.
But
and
that's my second. That's my second point. I don't think Harry legitimately doesn't want to be with Molly. I think he's ignoring his desires because of those circumstances. Just like he's doing.
It's not wrong for him to do that.
But that's way different than him not actually wanting to be with Molly, which is what you're saying. And
I want cheesecake. That doesn't mean I'm going to go eat it all the time. It's just.
But why not? Anyway, that's a philosophical debate. That's not what we're talking about. Also, again, Justin, we're going to get to you in 1 second. About Elaine, wizards live a really long time. It's definitely possible that trust could be built up again over a long period of time. So, you never know what's going to happen there. Oh, and one more thing about Molly, to counter to with what Stark said. What's her name? Lucio said that, and we'll get to Lucio in a bit, that it's very common for a apprentice and mentor to form that relationship for a variety of reasons. So I don't think that because Molly was his apprentice that counts him out. And one last thing, sorry, I know, because I really like this ship and I really want it to happen, even though Alex hates me, Director Alex. And their new relationship as Winter Knight and Winter Lady makes it even more viable. Justin.
That's what I was going to bring up. Is so you've got two perspectives. You've got we grew with Dresden as Dresden grew with Molly, and Dresden's known Molly since before she could wear a bra. And so that shapes some of his understanding. But once you get past your mid-20s, that sort of thing stops to be a thing. And as you pointed out, she's probably approaching her late 20s now. I don't think 28 seems a little old, but anyway, and he's approaching 40. But certainly the fact that she's got the Winter Lady mantle now is a huge deal, because assuming they keep these mantles, that could be a discussion for a later show, but that really adds weight to the fact that the Molly Dresden thing is certainly feasible, and I don't blame the people that think so. I mean, either of them are hot for different reasons, and so you can root for the home team, whatever your relationship is. But the Molly thing makes more sense when you start to talk about the age and when you start to talk about availability and things like that. Like, how much is Dresden going to be stuck in Mab's court, and how much is Molly going to have free time to do that sort of thing because she's been kind of busy with work recently, and that sort of thing. So I think it's feasible. It's just mostly you're rooting for your favorites, and certainly if you come at it from the fact that Dresden wants to do nothing more than to gain Michael's eternal approval, and he's known Molly since she didn't even wear makeup and didn't wear a bra. Then you get into some interesting things, but you get old enough and your perspective changes, so it's not like it's a done deal that it's never going to be Molly. But I think Karen's the more likely, and I think that's how it's going to work out. So.
And I think Karen's going to be dead. All right, let's move on to another ship. Chris or Stark, do either of you have a more obvious ship relationship?
Guard and Hendrix.
I love that one.
Yeah, I can see it. Why do you think Guard and Hendrix, though?
Because Hendrix's behavior, throughout the books has been pretty much one note. It's like, I'm the thug and I beat up people and kill them, whatever. But when Guard comes into play, and specifically, I can't remember which book it was, but when she became injured to the point where her intestines were coming out, Hendrix's behavior changed a lot. I mean, yeah, we've seen Hendrix be protective of Marcone countless times, but we see a different side of him kind of go on about that with Guard. At least that's the way I interpreted it, but I'll admit I could be wrong about it.
Anyone else?
I just thought it was a fun character growth for Hendrix being just this side character, and then he's growing as he's getting concerned for Guard in a small favor. That I thought was cool, and that they're kind of equals versus like Guard and Marcone, in which Marcone's her boss, and it's just a little meh.
But what are they called? Einhirnarden?
Einherjar.
Can they, like, what do they have relationships with mortals? They're not mortals, right? They're not human beings.
She's not, though. She's a Valkyrie. That's different.
Oh, okay, Valkyrie. Yeah. So how would that work?
Does it matter?
Kind of. I mean, we're discussing the viability, of all these different. Yeah, of course it matters if we're talking about Elaine and the trust issues and Molly and the dad issues.
I'm not saying that there's going to be some viability there. There's going to be a long-term relationship, but I'm saying that if she's got all the appropriate parts, then I think it'll work out just fine. So, I think we got to keep in mind that most people's relationships, save but one, are short term. So, if they do a thing even for as short as her assignment is, and then she moves on, that's a pretty common fantasy trope as well. That she's an immortal and he's a human. She's an elf and he's a dwarf, and it's just a forbidden love, and they shouldn't be able to do the thing. But that's the kind of tragedy and the kind of feels that gives the Dresden Files some depth. So
True. What about who else? Back to Harry. Are Harry and Lucio? Are Harry and Lucio just dead? What do you guys think?
Go for it,
Chris.
I think so. Like the whole mind control thing, I think would be a huge hurdle to get over. Just thinking on that for a little bit though was I don't know if it was ever like elaborated if the mind control was like basically like super tequila and just she maybe had a thing for Dresden at some point, or if the entirety of her feelings it was all just the mind control.
Stark.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't all of it. I know that much, at least. I remember distinctly Lucio saying that maybe something could have come from it if it had been honest and real, but basically that it wasn't. overall, and that kind of upset me a bit. I mean, just the feels in the heart, because I really like them together. I mean, maybe it wasn't the best relationship ever, especially in retrospect, but I think it was good for the both of them. I mean, it was, you could argue, kind of like the rebound for the two of them, but I kind of liked them together. It seemed like a nice fit, even if it wasn't a permanent one.
High five. And I just don't want Harry and Karen. It's so boring. I don't get why you guys don't think it's boring. It's just like so obvious, and I'm gonna stop raging.
Harry and Lucio, it was kind of fun when it was happening, but all throughout Turncoat, there were several points in which their values just differed too much for them to be sustainable for a long time. So I think they're dead now, but it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Harry and Lucio.
I just wanted to point out that I think, like, Lucio pulled the plug on that. I think Harry was still all about it, even with the mind control. But as Stark pointed out, like, I think the big takeaway with her kind of breaking it off was that, as much as anything, she needed to go do some soul searching and find out, question. Well, not that she needed to, but she was going to question all the decisions she had made for the last several years and see which ones were probably being manipulated and which ones were really her. And it seemed like they had crossed. She was very much a traditionalist, so they had crossed the superior and underling kind of barrier there, and that was one of the things that kind of freaked her out as much as anything, and that she just needed to go figure out what's who she really is in the meantime. So maybe, hopefully, we'll see her in the next book, because it seems like it's going to be a huge reunion thing, and all the loose ends are going to start to get brought back together in peace talks. But maybe that's just my hopes for the book. So hopefully they bring her back in.
Yeah, we'll have to see. All right, let's move on to the less. Oh wait, Alex, go ahead.
I just kind of want to talk about Carlos and Molly more because I think it's an awesome fit. And also, Butcher announced that one of the short stories that he's writing is of Molly's first job as the Winter Lady, which involves Carlos. So it's just kind of like pushing them together more, and I really like it.
Thoughts, guys?
Why are they a good fit, other than he's a wizard and not Harry? I'm curious.
Well, they're more similar in age, so it's like, hey, the age thing doesn't matter. What the hell? They're still there. They're kind of in a similar range of maturity, more of it. And Carlos just really liked her, especially throughout White Knight. They're both wizards. She's more than a wizard now. So they have like that increased lifespan that everybody's talking about. With Molly and Harry would be better. He's also a good Catholic boy. I think Michael would very much approve of him, and I think they just fit very well.
Actually, I hadn't thought of that. The Catholic thing that does work out nicely.
Maybe this is a little bit crass, but do we know if Molly ever lost her virginity before becoming the Winter Lady? Because by the time she becomes Harry's apprentice, she hasn't. And we don't see her with anyone up to that point. So, because we also know that Carlos is a virgin, at least last we heard. So I'm wondering.
She was dating Nelson or Butthead or whatever his name was from Proven Guilty. So kids being kids these days.
No, this was. She says that they've done everything but. So. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that would be like an interesting thing, like two first timers like getting together. You know what I mean? Ramirez and Molly. Anyone? I'm just an old creep here.
I don't think it's been officially said, but Harry says that she goes on dates and stuff. But at the end of Proven Guilty, he also said that she shouldn't have sex because it gets weird and complicated to the point that she shouldn't masturbate, which I think is one of the stupidest things he could have said to her ever.
I think he was joking. We could have a whole episode discussing that conversation, right?
Yeah, probably. But
I just thought that was an interesting thing to note.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the fact that she's Michael's daughter, and so he's like, "No, you're not allowed to do any of those things. I don't you want to know that you know about that. I don't want you to think about that. Just kind of, I call it the mom and dad rule. It's okay that your parents do it. It's not okay that you know that they do it. So, it's the same thing with Molly. It's just like just don't do the things.
But yeah, but yeah, I think Molly and Ramirez would be okay. I still think Molly and Harry best ship. Um, all right, getting even weirder. Does anyone have any weirder? Or actually, let's talk about Andy and Butters. Is there anything to talk about there? Do you guys think? First of all, whoa, that's awesome, right? I mean, when we first got to that in the books, I was like, yes. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Go,
Stark.
yeah, go ahead, Stark.
Okay. I was just going to say that just to me, and it is just a personal thing, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on Andy and Butters as a couple or as a shipping with it. Uh, I do kind of take issue with the way that how soon that happened, or maybe not how soon it happened, sorry. But I just feel like the progression of that was a little off, with one of the alphas that died that she was with, and it's like, okay, here's Butters, and it's like, okay, that was an awesome ending for that particular book, but then when that started to happen, I thought, yeah, I don't know. To me, that felt a little off. Uh,
I think my first read through, I thought the same thing because I think she was with Kirby, and he's one of the ones that gets killed by the Nagloshi. Um, I don't think you find out about that until Ghost Story, though. Maybe my timing's off, but I mean, if you take it that it's about a year between books, roughly, then it's probably been a couple years by then. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
Cold Days, I think.
oh, is that it?
Yeah,
So I know they're living together in Cold Days, but I thought, they were like together because she's at the meeting with everybody with Madeline or whoever the White Court vampire was at the time. So I don't know. But yeah, my first blush was like that was a little bit fast, but I think reading it the second time, you like get a feel for the time that's passed and that sort of thing. And maybe they were just like together, but they weren't like, going to spend the rest of their lives together or something. I don't know. Everybody's grieving process is different, so
I think that
Uh,
everyone on
so
this show hates all the things that I love. So thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Dr.
I mean, I
Alex.
like the relationship, but I also think it's funny that it seems like it started when Butters needed to be revived at the end of Ghost Story, and it was being done to him by Naked, Andy, and Marcy. And so he woke up and he's like, "This is great," except for the pounding pain in my chest. And then we don't see them again until Cold Days, in which they're living together. A nice beginning to the relationship, I think.
Best beginning, best ship. I love that ship. I think it's great that Butters, who's like the typical nerdy character, gets to be with like the super hot babe. I don't know. You don't see that too much, I think. Um, okay, getting even weirder. Does anyone have a weird ship? Director Alex, I know you have a few. Come on. Nobody? How
Uh,
about. Go ahead.
what do you guys think of Marcone and Miss Demeter, aka Helen Beckett?
No, that's not weird. We've seen it. That we know that that's happening, right?
I think
Yeah,
it's
but what
going.
do you think about it?
Stark.
Sorry, I was just going to say, agree that yeah, it's heavily implied that that's going on.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird. Again, it's that whole. Well, I think it's kind of one-sided, right? I mean, it's we see that Demeter um, has betrayed Marcone, but maybe that was like before she realized she was in love with him, or I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, my opinion of it is that I like the sort of chemistry between them. Uh, like Demeter's issues with Marcone and Marcone feeling guilty about her daughter and all things like that, and the fact that it seems like it's going to explode in a giant catastrophe at some point.
Yeah, catastrophe is not the word that I was going to use for it, but yeah, I don't know. It's she's damaged goods and he's damaged goods, and then maybe together they create a person. But I think the adage is, keep your friends closer, your enemies closer. So maybe she's going to try and do something to them at some point, and maybe they're just going to have hot, wild, crazy sex in the meantime. Who's to judge these people? So.
True. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but like I said, I mean, I'll go ahead. Start. Did you have something else?
Uh, Particularly with them, I'm just kind of in the same boat with other people about this. Just, I want to find out how this is all going to come to an end between the two of them. I mean, I'm really curious because they're playing both their cards close to their chest, and we still don't know all the details regarding, each individual's motives in the situation or what their intentions or desires might be. So I'm really, really curious as to how it's all going to come to light.
All right. Yeah. What about Thomas and Justine? I mean, do you guys think that they have kind of like a pseudo relationship? I guess. I mean, they both have very strong feelings for each other, but I don't know. Like Justine kind of comments that when you're dating a white court vampire, this is in Bombshell, I think. When you're dating a white court vampire, it's never normal. What do you guys think?
I think that's just from the supernatural aspect, though. I mean, maybe that's just my interpretation from that short story, but I got the impression that they kind of do need each other. I mean, Thomas needs some kind of grounding in his life. I mean, we're talking long-term wise, before even Harry comes into play with him in his life, that he needed someone to kind of keep him on the relative straight and narrow of his moral compass. And Justine, at least earlier in the series, needed him, and prior to the series because of her condition. And I had something I'll make note on, but I would like to hear, other people's thoughts about it, because there was something I kind of want to throw out there as a question to everybody in regard to Justine's condition.
Other people, Justine and Thomas.
Yeah, so Justine and Thomas is what you get when you've got a really, really weird situation and true love sorts of things, because literally the supernatural version of true love, in the sense that she was protected so thoroughly even from him, so that she was poisoned, for lack of a better word, for the White Court. But then you see in Ghost Story, you get to do the whole Ghost of Christmas Past thing at the end, and you get to see how everybody's doing, and then you get to see that she loves him so much that she makes him a sandwich, which, for the White Court is a much sexier, kind of sandwich. So she's so worried about him feeding after the whole Nagloshi thing, and how he's been for the last while, that she breaks that bond, that protection, so that he would be well. And it's a weird kind of self-sacrifice, in the sense that she is food, and she is his food, and she's food for other kinds of vampires, and yet she cares for him so much that she would make sure he gets well fed. It's just a really kind of weird thing, because after their whole encounter where he almost nearly kills her, but he doesn't. That was almost normalizing, and that was almost them being like real people. But then you see the Ghost Story thing, and she's just going to bring hookers home for him so that he can feed and get strong. And I don't know, it's a little weird, but that's the sort of thing that you would do for a person, but trade that person out for a supernatural vampire, and there you go instead.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's get even crazier. Who do we think Laura's been with? Or do you think there's a possibility of Laura and Harry? Or Stark, did you have something else?
Yeah, it was just a quick note about Justine,
Okay.
something that I wasn't sure on, because I was trying to think about their relationship before the podcast, and uh, Justine's condition seems to have gone away after that fatal feeding, and I'm wondering if that was maybe just an oversight, or was to imply something a little more significant about that fateful night when Thomas almost killed her from feeding. Uh, And I'm wondering if that might come into play later on in some fashion, either with specifically Justine or what the capabilities of the White Court can be potentially. Because beforehand it was, she started to go nuts after a couple days, I think, in grave peril at that point. And there was that instance in the novella Backup where they hadn't seen each other in a long time since after Justine had recovered. So yeah, just I'm interested as to what that might imply or what it, if it's just an oversight.
I don't think it's necessarily the almost fatal feeding that makes it go away. Because we see during White Knight that she's like really shaky, and I think she said she's being heavily medicated, but she's still kind of out of it. I think it's actually the proximity to Thomas because she talks about it in some book, I can't remember, that she has like an excess of feelings and emotions, and Thomas is able to siphon some of those away and kind of return her to normalcy. So that's, I think, what is causing that to happen.
Well, in White Knight, she's putting on that affect of being unstable, and then when she gets in an area where they're not around a whole lot of other people, she's acting very normal and very competent, and she just badgers away. It's like, I'm just on medication, don't worry about that right now. And she's capable throughout the ensuing fight later. So it's like she's
Yeah,
stable now.
capable is different than how I think it's different than how she acts in Cold Days when she's with Thomas again full time.
She didn't act like much in Cold Days. She was just kind of
Or not,
there. She
maybe
wasn't.
it's Ghost Story.
What?
The end of Ghost Story when they're together. I think she's showing more mental capacity. I don't know. I guess maybe I could be reading a little bit too much into both those situations.
Yeah, her condition was pretty close, or at least very reminiscent of bipolar disorder, and that's not always something that just fades over time. Justine's had this condition for what we understand to be a pretty lengthy amount of time, so there has to be a reason for why it's changing. And people could, you can make the argument that, oh, it's just her relationship with Thomas in general that's helping her through it, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case with this. I think that that feeding, in combination with the significance of the act, I think that might have actually done something, and might be something maybe very minor in the grand scheme of things, but something of note.
So, Stark,
I
you know of what the first line will be of Peace Talks?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah. So, what do you think is going to happen with that, with Justine's condition?
honestly, I have no idea how that's going to play out, but I do remember that as soon as I saw that, I think I coughed for like 3 minutes because I didn't expect to see that, early in the morning one day, just checking a few things out about Jim Butcher's Twitter and stuff. Um, yeah, that is a big whole can of worms. Just the whole premise, I think.
Yeah, I mean we went into depth on that in the previous show, so we don't need to go back over that. I think we because wow, we're actually at 5 minutes or 55 minutes in. I guess we're going to go over again. We should kind of try and cover some of the crazier. Does anyone have a crazy? If we don't want to talk about Lara, does anyone have a crazy ship? Something out of the ordinary?
I got one. It's not really. I'm thinking we should all like pick a character and then throw in. So who do you guys like for Rashid? My vote would be Komori, just because I think their mutual love of hoods would, carry them throughout the years.
That's what I'm talking about, though. I mean, you could be silly about it, but that's out of left field there.
That's hilarious, but it just reminded me of this conspiracy. If Cowell is Simon Petrovich, then I wanted Kumori to be that person that Morgan said that he cared deeply about in Summer Night. So I want Kumori and Morgan to have been a thing.
I thought he was talking about Simon. Morgan was
He
talking
never
about Simon.
said. He just said someone I dearly cared about was that Archangel, and
Yeah,
that's
I
why he was so
assumed it was
pissed.
Simon.
But who?
But that's
He
true.
never said that.
That's true. That's fair. That would be bonkers. But we also agreed before the show started to not talk about anyone who's already died. Otherwise, I would have gone on a huge rant about Susan and Harry. So, not doing that. Nope. No, thank you. Chris, were you just kidding, or did you have?
I was trying to, create a dialogue and stuff. I'm serious. I'm full on serious about that, though.
So why do you? I mean, there isn't even any evidence to say that Rashid's ever met her. Do you think? Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, there is that whole hinting. I know it's like a popular fan theory that Cal and Komori are some version of time travelers. So I don't know. Maybe they met back in old 1847 or something.
She practices black magic, though, and he seems like a pretty hard line against that, judging by his reaction and proven guilty. So, I mean, granted, he's not so hardline that he's like, quick, let's go kill Molly and whatnot, but Komori seems like she would be well past that line to me, so.
I think he might be reasonable enough to see that, because was it she saved the dude? Like, it does have altruistic applications, and maybe she can be the one to sort of soften him up a little bit on that.
What about Harry and Cowell? No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Unless anyone actually thinks that.
Dear God, no, please. Please, no.
Do you guys think that Cowell and Kumari have something, or Kumari and Cowell have something romantic going on?
That
No.
just seems like the obvious, of course they do because they work together thing that you complain about with Harry and Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just asking. Well, you guys are the ones who are all about the obvious, so I don't know. No, Chris, that was really good. Any other crazy ones?
Who do you think Map should be with?
Rashid.
Zeus.
I was thinking Ebenezer myself, but that would be a fun one to watch. So
Ebenezer or Zeus or Rashid?
Ebenezer and Mab. So
yeah, that's good. What about Lara and Mab? I mean, Lara and Mab. What about Lara and Ebenezer?
No chance in hell.
I don't know.
He seems to be a little bit of a bias against the White Court. He hasn't even acknowledged Thomas, even though he knows better, or at least it's assumed that he knows better. And his interchange with Laura in Turncoat was pretty convincing, and still one of my favorite scenes out of the whole series. So, yeah, I mean, maybe with the whole "because I hate you, we'll fall in bed someday" thing, that seems to be the theme for ships. But other than that, I don't see that really happening.
Who do we think Lara has, like, whether it's characters we've met already or like people in real life that aren't actually part of the series? Who do you think Lara's been with? You think she was the one who convinced Anthony Weiner to leak a penis picture? What do you guys think? Come on.
I think she loves money. I think she loves power. I think she's a vampire, and I don't think she is going to do the whole relationship thing. That's what I think.
I think she'd get along with either Dracula or his father, Dracul. I think that'd be a fun pairing.
Or what about the dragon Fervarax?
I don't think we know enough about him just yet to actually make any kind of calls with him, but that's just me.
Also, I really hope that Santa Claus just gets it on with everyone in the Fee Courts. Just all the time. He deserves it. He's so jolly. Justin and Stark are laughing. That's good. All right, what about Butters, Molly, and Andy? No, I'm just kidding. Who else?
Stop. I can only get so erect.
Yeah. I just want. I wonder if Butcher would put that in as like a joke at some point somewhere, like this that starts happening at the beginning of one of the books, and then Dresden just wakes up, and it's like, oh, no. Wow, I've been incredibly crass this episode. I apologize for my crassness. Uh, Director Alex.
I just realized that we haven't talked about Murphy and Kincaid, and maybe people want to because big thing of how it affects Harry and everything.
I mean, that is just one crazy love triangle, right? Right? Harry's got killed by Kincaid, and it's crazy. What do you guys think?
I loved the interplay between Harry and Kincaid in Small Favor of, I know who I'm going to say aloha to. I loved it.
Anyone else?
I thought that ship sailed, by Small Favor. Like they did their Hawaii thing, and then it was done. So I imagine once Butcher finally gets that one written and published, that we'll know the story, and that'll probably be their like one and done sort of situation. I think it was a pretty good pairing, but I also think it was just a troll, like that. At least Butcher was trolling, Harry and everybody else, everybody who cares about the Carrion ship anyway. But I think it was a really good introduction because he's the bad boy and he's got the motorcycle and the guns and hunts vampires at night, and it's just like, oh yeah, I could see the attraction here. So
All right. Any other ships? Because we gotta start bringing this to a close. Any other ships? Stark, Chris, anybody? Ships? It's like people are thinking. It's hard, right? I mean, I probably forgot about some characters like Kumori. There's like so many characters, and they all play such different roles that it's difficult sometimes to even imagine them in certain pairings, I guess.
I think I might be too cynical for some of this, though, because I keep thinking of the relationships that I am so bitterly glad have ended, like Harry and Susan.
What?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're opening it. We're opening the. This is an even worse can than the Harry and Murphy can that we're opening. Susan and Harry were the perfect couple. There, I said it.
I staunchly disagree.
Okay, why do you disagree?
I disagree because at first with Harry and Susan, I loved it, especially hitting that one point in Full Moon where she gave him the coat and they had that beautiful scene in the bedroom. I thought that was absolutely amazing. I thought, great, we're going to get some character development with the two of them. Their relationship is really going to start to grow. And then Grey Peril happened, and she did all that dumb shit just for her career. I absolutely couldn't stand that. And the coffin in the nail was changes. Keeping Harry away from his daughter, even though there might be some reasonable justification there, nope, can't stand her, done. When she died, it was sad, kind of.
No, keep going. Are you done?
It's basically that. It's like the concept of Susan early on I liked, and I liked the interplay between the two of them. I liked the flirtation that they had going on. But
no, sorry, not you. Keep going.
At the same time, when it started to develop and all that, that was great, and I liked it. But then when she went all focused on her career, I'm like, really, we're gonna go this angle with her? Okay, sure, maybe the whole thing with her, losing her memories of him for a time will be good. And then she, oh my God, when she fucking turned down his proposal, that pissed me off so bad. I'm like, okay, we can kind of understand because, you're going through some serious crap right now and you're a danger to yourself and others. We understand. Oh my god, and I really can't stand Susan after that point, especially. I
Okay,
really can't.
I will concede that point. I actually block out that part of the relationship because it's so terrible. So I wasn't even thinking about any of that stuff past Grave Peril. I'm talking about pre-Grave Peril. Harry and Susan are the perfect couple. After that, Susan basically becomes a different person, and then you're right, and changes. Fuck her for um, for what she did to Harry. That's totally fucked up and unforgivable. I totally agree. But I think, yeah, if things had been played differently, if she had said yes to the proposal, if she hadn't hidden, you know, if she hadn't hidden, or if they hadn't had a child, things could have been different. But yeah, it's a classic trope of, things are going really well, and then let's tear it in two because it's fantasy and we have to dramatically change people and characters.
If you have a problem with good things getting torn to bits in the Dresden Files, then you probably should stop reading the Dresden Files.
Well, I don't have a problem. I have a problem with it sometimes. George R. R. Martin's really guilty of this. Like, he's a great writer, but to just kill characters for the sake of killing them and making the audience sad is kind of dumb. Like, Butcher, I know he gains pleasure in our pain, but he is pretty good at balancing the amount of pain, I guess, and the frequency with which we get hit with that kind of stuff. And we talked about this before, how there was books where it actually turned out good for Harry in the end. So, yeah. Anyone else? Justin, you're smiling.
I think it's just funny because I don't have that much hate for her. What she did was unfair, and that sucks. But the more I think about it, it's not like it's not uncommon for that to happen in real life. That other than the whole half vampire, I'm a wizard thing. That's a little uncommon for real life. But the that something happened and I'm not going to talk about it, and then I hid it and I gave up the kid for adoption, and whatever types of tropes. So I sure, you get mad, but then you get into the mission. And like I said, I read the Dresden Files on rails, so I don't have a lot of secondary motivations beyond like watching Harry go through it. And I'm that kind of person as well. Like, shit hit the fan, so it's time to do the mission, and we can deal with all the emotional stuff afterwards. And when it's like, well, I'm gonna be really fucking mad at you, but we're gonna go save my daughter right now, and that's more important. And then he doesn't get the opportunity to be mad at her because the ending, and the ending is tragic and all of that stuff. So yeah, I never had some festering hate for Susan. So it's just funny to hear it.
I personally really liked their relationship because I liked how heartbreaking it was. Grave Peril, they were both stupid, both of them. She went against what he said, but he also didn't tell her enough.
Susan was the stupidest. Susan is that is
no.
That is the stupidest thing a character does in the entire series. There is nothing stupider that happens than that. That is the stupidest. I can't think of anything else. Go ahead, Stark. Sorry to cut you off.
I was just going to say, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, yeah, Harry made some bad calls in the early books. I totally agree with that. But seriously, she went behind his back to do it. It's like, woman, you don't understand the things that we're dealing with here, okay? These are fucking vampires, for crying out loud.
He wasn't teaching her. It's also his fault. And it's on both of them. Yes, she didn't, but she didn't know enough to make an informed decision.
No. You are totally ignoring the fact that she walked into a den of horrendously powerful and dangerous creatures, not just red court vampires, but some of the most dangerous creatures on Earth. Whether she knew it or not, that was really stupid. And once Harry conveyed this information to her that she was in an incredibly dangerous place, she didn't leave immediately.
Because she kind of couldn't, because Mavra was there and he needed to choose either her or Michael, and there was extenuating circumstances of why she didn't leave immediately. but
she
she
refused
also
to
went there
leave.
prepared.
She
She went there prepared.
You
I
can't
think that
prepare
is
for
getting
that kind.
overlooked here.
You can't prepare for that. That's even more insulting. Thinking that she could prepare herself for. This is, I think,
She has the
another
garlic
episode.
that they used in order to get Mavra away. I think that was actually rather well of her. But ignoring that part, the things that I liked about the relationship was how they fit together. They had a very good synergy and how they worked, and the heartbreak of her having to turn down her proposal. And I loved the ending of Grave Peril. If he got a postcard and it said 3 words, "I'll let you guess which 3." And when they came back in Death Masks, I love the scene of them together and they're trapped in their apartment, and especially when coming back and changes and finding out he has a daughter and all the betrayal, and they're still joking with each other. It's their perfect fits, and the heartbreak of them not being able to be together because of the betrayal and everything. I really, really liked it. So I don't really understand the hate for her.
I'll agree with some of the good points you are making, Director Alex. Like there are good aspects of the relationship. As much rage as I'm giving out on this, I do agree there are good things about the relationship. You know, it's not holy she's the worst person ever, because that's definitely not the case. But I mean, when you made that point about changes, about they're still joking, I also remember that one scene where Susan made one remark and Harry's like, "Look, this ain't continuing anymore. We're done. This isn't going on anymore. What you did, you fucked up too bad. It's over." So
Yeah, and that's the part that I like about it, is that they can't go back, but they want to, and then they absolutely can't.
right, and I agree with that. I totally agree that there are good things about the relationship, and that dynamic is fine. I don't have a problem with that specific dynamic and that point. It's just in general, I think she's done too anything. I think comparatively, she's done more wrong and more harm than she has good. But it's a very very close between the two of them. It's very very close, like 55-45, something like that. Anybody else have agree or disagree with that?
I don't want to say that I necessarily hate Susan as a character or as a and like her personality. I don't necessarily think that she's stupid. I think she was incredibly naive both times to walk into that party and to keep the child from Maggie from Harry. But I really think that that was the stupidest thing anyone's done, just because of the gravity of the situation. So, but I want to clarify that I don't think that she's necessarily a bad character. Like, I don't hate her like I hate Nick. I fucking hate Nicodemus. Okay, one more ship, and then we really need to start wrapping up because there was some other stuff we wanted to talk about. One more ship. Anyone? No more ships? Has our ship sailed? Justin?
I thought of one.
Okay.
Tutu and Lacuna. Yeah.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
I am 100% for it, although it's kind of obvious, and it even ties into the whole adversaries make great relationship type thing, because she has nothing but disdain when they meet. Like, I can't believe you eat pizza and you're just the worst, and just incredibly dismissive of him. But yeah, I like it.
Just to kind of jump in here for a second, let's just not forget for a minute that men and women fall in love on a regular basis. And talk about adversarial. I mean, polar opposites attract, right? So, it'll be funny to see Toot Toot change over time and see Lakuta change over time, because I assume she's going to come back. She was too strong of a character to just be like one and done. But we've gone, I guess there's just the one book, but we just don't have any kind of resolution to that story, and so I would like to definitely see that come back and kind of play itself out.
I think it would be amusing too if like she challenged Toot Toot for control over the Zalord's army, because she would clearly think she was more suited to lead, them.
Also, yeah, okay. All right, we need to wrap this up. I'm sorry if we didn't talk as much as we could have about same-sex ships. I don't know. Is there really any that you guys can think of? Maybe Justine and Laura, or Andy and Molly or something. I mean, we kind of talked about a lot of ships that we could talk about, and we only have pretty much an hour to talk about that stuff. So feel free to tweet at us, email us, comment on the Reddit post we're going to make or the YouTube video, and let us know what you think, please, because we will address it on the next show. And I'm sorry to cut the conversation short, guys, but we're over by 15 minutes now. So, did we want to mention anything else about the AMA? Anyone?
Yes,
Oh,
just real quick. Between the AMA, we didn't mention it, and I realized about halfway through. So between the AMA and between the panel that I saw at Comic-Con, Butcher is planning on um, turning in peace talks around Christmas, is what he said at the convention. He said January 1st somewhere else at one point. So assume by the end of the year he's hoping to have peace talks done, and then it takes a couple of months before it goes to the publisher. And then one thing he said at the Comic-Con panel was that he's planning to write the Cinder Spires and the Dresden Files side by side, which we kind of figured, and he's going to try and have one book for each series out every 6 months. So hopefully we've got a really busy, awesome time ahead of us. And my copy of the Cinder Spires just shipped yesterday, so I'm pretty excited to get a handle on it.
And when is that out? The 29th?
Something like that. I know it's supposed to be by the end of the month, so there's like 3 more days.
We might have, possibly, I'm just thinking of this now, I haven't mentioned it to anyone, we might have an episode where we talk about Cinder Spires. I might give it a read. We'll see if we can get something like that together. About the AMA, I thought it was really interesting to note that one of the first questions he answered, or at least one of the most voted or the highest up questions that got answered, was about Harry's power level and how he's still got a ways to go in the amount of power he's going to get, and how he's talking about some of the more powerful wizards we've seen. They're actually even more powerful than we might realize, and they have possibly mantles and other things that are granting them that power other than just their own wizardly skills. What did you guys think about that? Stark, Chris? Or Stark? Stark, go.
Just that I think that's pretty cool, and it kind of makes more sense. I mean, in previous interviews and stuff that Jim Butcher's talked about, he kind of paints like the worst aspects of government with, the White Council. And, it kind of makes sense to have some aces in the hole up their sleeves. I mean, it really does make sense to me that they would really try to, have that one perfect move that they can throw out that would totally change the entire course of whatever fight was going on, in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see what they have kind of up their sleeves. All right. Did want to mention we have something hopefully brewing, something really big that might be coming into play at the beginning of this upcoming year, 2016. We'll let you all know as we get more information about that. Also, very important, and I should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but I forgot. Before I do this, does anyone else want to say anything about the AMA or shipping or anything in general? Director Alex, do you want to call me an asshole one more time?
You're an asshole.
Okay, thank you. Don't worry. Director Alex and I will...
I do have an announcement.
Oh, go for it.
Something I want to address. You may have heard that Jim Butcher's beloved guard dog Frost has died, and it's all very sad. He has an epic name. You really look at the website to find it out because it's amazing. But if you want to show your sympathy, they're asking for donations to a charity in order to help some pit bulls, I believe. I just wanted to bring attention to that if anyone hasn't heard of it yet.
Thank you. I forgot to do that in the beginning of the show. So yeah, please, I'm trying to make the show more socially conscious. So please tweet at us, email us, get at us on Reddit. Please subscribe on YouTube and iTunes and leave a rating on iTunes if you use that. Even if you don't, just download iTunes or go to YouTube and subscribe, because it helps the show gain legitimacy, and the more legitimate we appear, the more stuff we can do. We're hoping to have some big things in the beginning of next year. Oh, and the super big announcement, next episode marks the 10th episode. Um, Hopefully we will be starting the ranking of the books. We are going to rank each of the books in order, starting with the worst to the best, and we will not stop ranking until we all agree on the order. So it's going to take a while. It could take a long time. I'm predicting it's going to take at least 3 episodes. I think just the first rank, the lowest ranked book alone, is going to take a half hour to an hour. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to get dirty. Alex is going to call me an asshole even more. It's going to be exciting. I said that already. Did anyone else? Am I forgetting anything? Anything else? Director Alex, we're good?
I think so.
Awesome. So, yeah, we're going to try and do the show twice a month. It worked out this month. We're all really busy, myself included, so who knows? Hopefully we can get it in twice a month. Oh, wow, I've really, really been crass this episode. I think it's the whole shipping thing that's just brought it out in me. We're trying to do it twice a month. I'm going to try and get the audio up really soon. And yeah, let us know. Complaints or comments, please get at us. That's the only way we can know. And thank you to the people who have already started to reach out to us. The people on Twitter that we mentioned at the top of the show, the people who chatted with us in the last subreddit post thread. I hope that we kind of made amends for some of the things that you thought were wrong. And yeah, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.